Hello and welcome to the review of a brand new Mazda. Even though this is brand new, there are currently 60 available on our website, so you may find a lightly used or demo mileage model under list price. So check them out on our used car site. We'll leave a link to that here or in the description below. Anyway, there's a lot to talk about here, so let's get into it.
Dream, search, drive. Cars.co.za.
Faf de Klerk knows that no matter what you've done for your country, and the ladies, you can still get caught with your pants down. Don't faff around, just claim via WhatsApp and get paid out quick fast. Budget, the official insurer of good South Africans.
Now, in case you don't know what a Mazda CX-60 is, it's Mazda's first real foray into the premium segment. It goes up against things like the BMW X3, the Mercedes-Benz GLC, Audi Q3, Q5, and probably even something like a Range Rover Evoque. What is interesting about this CX-60 is that it's actually built on rear-wheel drive architecture. So it's rear-wheel drive first. There is an all-wheel drive version which sits at the top of the range, but this one that we have here is rear-wheel drive. So that kind of makes a statement to start with, that you've built a dynamic, agile SUV. So probably find some corners to test that in, eh? Now, what Mazda is trying to do in making the CX-60 a premium car is one of the hardest things to do as a manufacturer. There's that famous South African billionaire, Omar Rusk, who says that it's very easy to start off as a premium manufacturer and then build mass-selling vehicles like the Model 3. But if you start off with a Model Y, it's easier to come down than it is to start at a Model 3 and then become expensive. But that's what Mazda's trying to do here. They're trying to take what was a reliable, trustworthy, Japanese, good value for money brand like the CX-3, the CX-5, and now make it premium to go up against the Germans and even the British with the CX-60. So, have they managed to do it? Well, the interior is really well built. You can tell that by the leather and the stitching and the door panels across the dash. Everything is really nice to touch. You know, you've got soft point dashboard here. You've got nice quilted leather in the door. There's even this nice aluminium kind of plastic, which, whilst it is plastic, it is quite nice to touch. I also really like the rear-wheel drive architecture of this. You can tell Mazda, by making this a rear-wheel drive first car, has built in really good dynamics to it. And when you get it on a nice twisty road like this, it's really fun to drive for an SUV. I mean, we've pinned it through some corners here and you can really feel that, like, the chassis sits, there's not much body roll. The steering is it's quite weighty and quite firm, but very direct and very fast. So change of direction for an SUV is great. So here in these nice twisty corners like this, you've got great feel and really nice balance for an SUV. You even got great feedback from the front end, and you can feel that power from the rear end just planting it into the ground. So from a dynamics point of view, they've knocked this out the park. The car handles brilliantly, probably one of the best in the segment. It really does feel like a performance SUV. What this car really needs is a more powerful engine. This 2.5 litre, even though it's got 141 kilowatts and 261 newton meters of torque, it doesn't suit the kind of car that Mazda is trying to make here. This car is really good dynamically, and it needs something with a bit more oomph, a bit more shove when you want to put your foot down and get going, you know? And that's the thing, Mazda does sell this car overseas with inline 6 turbocharged motors, both in diesel and in petrol. It even sells this 2.5 4-cylinder with a plug-in hybrid, which ups it to over 200 kilowatts and nearly 500 newton meters of torque. And that would have done perfectly. And I think fitting this with a 4-cylinder engine is probably just not enough to entice people into the seat. And that's a pity, because the car is really great to drive, and with a banging engine, which may come in 2024, it really could put Mazda on the mark in the premium sector. So Mazda does bring the CX-60 in two specs. You've got a dynamic and an individual. Dynamic being the entry, which is what we have here, and the individual, which is the top of the range, which has things like blind spot monitoring, lane departure, all of those kind of safety systems that are additional features. But there are some interesting specs in this dynamic model. Like it has an electrically adjustable steering wheel, but no heated seats. It's a bit of an odd one for me to get my head around. Also, you've got this fancy screen up the front here. You get a bigger screen in the individual model. This one's a bit small, but it's not a touch screen, so you have to navigate the whole system with this rotary dial here like it's an old school iDrive. And if you've got something like Android Auto on there, which is built around touchscreen, having to scroll through options is actually more time consuming and harder to do with the rotary dial than it is just touching. But Mazda has said that it believes touchscreens aren't safe for use, so it's mounted it further back away from you and you get the rotary dial. So it's fair enough that Mazda says that touchscreens kind of draw your attention away from the road. That's fair enough. So you do have to live with the rotary dial. And in terms of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you get Android Auto is only available with a cable, but you do get wireless Apple CarPlay, which is a bit weird. There is also a wireless charger here up front and multiple drive modes. Well, 2 drive modes here. You've got normal and sport in here. As for the infotainment system itself, it's very easy to use. The menus are very simple to understand, and Android Auto and Bluetooth connects seamlessly as you'd expect from a modern day car. In terms of your instrument cluster, you've got a digital layout, but it's designed in an analog way, which is I really like it. So it's kind of old school but new school in the way it's designed, and you've got this black with white numbers which stands out really nicely and makes it easy to perceive what's going on in front of you. The numbers can actually be increased in size like you can on like a smartphone. When you get harder vision and you can't see small numbers, you can actually increase the size of the numbers, which is good, I guess. And then I'm also seeing here that the fuel consumption readout at the moment is about 9.8 liters per 100 kilometer. We've had the car for about a tank and a quarter, so let's call that about 500 Ks at the moment. So even though it is only a 4-cylinder engine, it's not particularly fuel efficient either. And I think if you'd gone with a plug-in hybrid at that point, you would have probably dropped that number down to probably 5 or 6 liters per 100 with all the extra power. So it's kind of like a double whammy in terms of like why we should have gone with the plug-in hybrid version instead. But back to the interior, it is very nicely laid out. All of the touch points are really nice. The gear lever is a bit interesting to get used to start with, because park is kind of in the center with the gear lever, and then you move the gear lever to the side, so it kind of constantly sits at a diagonal angle, which is a bit weird once you've put it into drive or reverse. But once you've figured it out once, really easy to get used to, and quite simple to knock it between drive and reverse the whole time. You don't have to worry about whether you've snapped it into park by mistake, so you can just up and down between drive and reverse. Very useful if you're doing 3-point turns a lot or getting lost like I am. Even though the interior is well built, the materials are nice and premium, and there's really nice bits to like about it. If you go back to the original CX-60 release, hopefully we've got a picture of it which we can show you. There was an amazing white interior which had like cloth inserts and this kind of fabric-y interior. I would have loved to have seen that here to really, again, make the car stand out. Even though white leather isn't for everyone, it's certainly a standout material, and at least have it there as like a choice or an option for us. But what we have here is kind of a black with silvery accents here. Again, not awful, not amazing, but I think if you're going into the premium sector, you want something that really stands out and makes a statement. The boot of the Mazda CX-60. Firstly, you may note the quad tailpipes. Those are fake, but they do denote that it has sporty intentions. On the dynamic model, you get what's called a hands-free liftgate, but on this one, it's merely just automatic. Now, Mazda claims that is 571 liters of boot space. That's about the same as a BMW X3, so it's quite proportional. But to test it, I have my trusty cooler box here. Thank you, sir. Right, and if we slide that in here, it's actually quite a lot of space. So 1, 2, 3, probably a little bit more on the side. And in terms of depth in the center here, you can probably get 2 of these. So that's really, really practical. Then underneath, you've got a biscuit spare wheel. There aren't any shopping hooks in here, which is a bit weird, but you do have 2 tie-down points in here and a 12-volt socket. The rear seats split in a 40, 20, 40, and those can also be undone from here. So you've got here for this side, and then that one and the middle one, which is quite nice. But overall, this is actually quite a big size boot. It's actually a little bit bigger than a BMW X3. So in terms of practicality, apart from the shopping hooks, quite excellent. The rear seat comfortability test. Now, the front seat, it is in its rearmost position. That's because when you jump in and press the start button, everything moves forward to make you more comfortable and adjust to your driving position. So this is as bad as your knee room or leg room is ever going to get, and it's reasonable. Your foot room is pretty good as well. In terms of creature comforts back here, you've got power windows for the rear, and you've got rear vents here for air, but you don't have any climate control adjustments. You've got USB-C ports and what used to be maybe a 12-volt port, but has been blanked out there. The center armrest has 2 cup holders in it, and you've got 3 real seat belts here, especially one for the center point. There are also ISOFIX points on both sides, and the rear seat will recline, but only 2 positions. So you've got a little bit further back or normal. Still, it's really nice and comfortable here. I'm really impressed with the quality of the build in here. The leather's really nice, and the touch points are all quite premium. Mazda always had an unlimited kilometer warranty, and what they've done is they've added an extra 2 years to their warranties now. So you get 5 years unlimited kilometer warranty and a 5-year unlimited kilometer service plan. And it's probably the best service plan I can think of in the industry. Really impressive, and we know that Mazdas are reliable cars to start with, so that's kind of like rubber stamping that they think this car isn't going to break, and any parts of it they're going to be able to replace very quickly, and it's not going to cost much money to run. So in terms of running costs over 5 years, pretty impressive. So, as I said, this one is 749,000 Rand. The top spec is 850,000 Rand. And that kind of puts it in a weird price point against its rivals. You've got Tiguan, high-spec Kia Sportage, maybe Tucson as well is considered a rival. But then you've also got, above it, you've got things like the X3 or the GLC, Q5 and Range Rover Evoque. So it kind of sits in a weird space. Maybe in terms of engine output and size, something like a Mitsubishi Outlander or the Nissan X-Trail are more direct rivals, but this feels like more of like your driver's kind of SUV, someone who wants something a bit more dynamic. So in terms of that, it's in like a middle ground of not quite premium enough, but also more than your family oriented SUV. So, should you buy a Mazda CX-60? At the moment, I would really want a much more powerful engine. I think the turbo diesel and maybe even the hybrid, if they come, that's the sweet point of this, even if it ends up being closer to R1 million. At the moment, it probably just doesn't offer enough oomph to be considered a premium car, and there's not enough spec or value for money in the models that they have currently to be considered a family car. So it's in a bit of an awkward position. There are things that are really nice to like about it, like the interior, like the drive, and it's a really practical car. And at the moment you can get that from a lot of other manufacturers without having to spend 750,000 Rand. I think you can get similar amounts of value from a more traditional SUV, and it doesn't have a powerful enough engine to be considered a really premium drive.
Cars.co.za.
Are you busy trying to decide between 2 cars, 3 cars, 4 cars, 5 cars, 6 cars, and getting absolutely lost in all of the specs and all of the different pricing? Well, we have an excellent compare tool on our main website and in our app for you to use. It's very detailed, it's very slick and quick and efficient, and I highly recommend it. I use it all the time when I'm doing research for our car shoots. So check it out. We'll put the link in the description below and tell us what you think. Tell us if it helped you out.
You deserve insurance that doesn't faff around. Budget, the official insurer of good South Africans.